Congressional hearing room. We're here today for the Children event and for the Children briefing on child trafficking and where it's really happening. There's a lot of talk on child trafficking today, but a lot of people don't know where the door is, the entry. So first we have a panel of 5 here: Terry LaPointe, medical kidnap, Dr. Carlos Rivera, Chris Marks, myself, Francesca Amato, and David Jose, and we're going to talk about our views on where the child trafficking industry is really coming from. So first, without further ado, Terry LaPointe.
Hi. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. It is such an honor to be here to talk about the things that I've learned and I've seen that I cannot unsee as a journalist. I had no family that had issues here. I got I was in journalism and started investigating stories and looking into what is known as medical kidnapping. I was the lead investigative reporter for medicalkidnap.com for more than 4 years, and what I've seen is shocking. It's devastating, and it is decidedly un-American. When I say the word medical kidnap, what we mean is children who are taken from their families for medical kinds of reasons, medical connections to the reason they're taken from their families, and generally by Child Protective Services. And I had no idea that human trafficking was connected. I learned that the majority of the children that are rescued from human trafficking come out of foster care. Foster care is a pipeline to human trafficking and child sex trafficking. Just some statistics that I've learned. According to the federal AFCARS report by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, less than 16% of children who are taken from their families are taken for any kind of reasons of abuse. Now, we think of Child Protective Services as designed to protect children from abuse, from child abuse. My impression as an American before I started this investigative work was that Child Protective Services only got involved if there were terrible parents who were abusing their children. That's what I thought it was for, and I think that is what the majority of Americans think that Child Protective Services is for. Less than 16% are taken for reasons of any kind of abuse. Only 17% of the allegations against parents end up being substantiated. And that's from the Children's Bureau of Child Maltreatment report from U.S. Health and Human Services. So allegations against parents saying that they abuse their children, only 17% of those are even substantiated. And that doesn't even mean that it's like a criminal conviction of guilty. That means that someone has decided and written down that it is substantiated. It can be based not on actual evidence. The exonerating evidence can be left out. I've investigated hundreds and hundreds of cases from all across America, and I've talked with more families than we've covered stories have come to us and talked to us about what's happened. And the thing is, when we investigate these stories, we're not just taking their story and listening to what they have to say. We're looking at the medical records. We're looking at the court documents. We're interviewing other people that are involved. We're looking at both these children are being taken from parents who have done no wrong. Sometimes children have been taken for wanting because their parents want a second medical opinion. Perhaps, and we've covered this, where the parent did not want their child to have major surgery that removes an organ without a second opinion, and they took her child. We've seen, one of the things that I learned early on in this is the shocking, stunning reality that children who are wards of the state, children in the system, can legally be used as medical lab rats for medical drug testing, drug pharmaceutical research, medical research without their parents' knowledge or consent. Well, you say, how can that be? Because the Nuremberg Code after the Holocaust told us that there has to be informed consent. Well, they bypassed that by having social workers or judges sign off on consent in place of the family. So children are literally being taken for medical research. Children that are in foster care are much more likely to be given psychotropic drugs, medications. Even babies 2 and 3 years old are sometimes given cocktails of lots of medications, psychotropic medications, and they're able to be part of drug research. We've seen cases where we know that they've been directly involved in human trafficking, child sex trafficking. We've seen where children have been placed with child sex offenders. In fact, in Los Angeles, it was in the mainstream media a few years ago, there was a list of approved foster parents and another list of registered sex offenders. There were 1,000 names that were on both lists. Registered sex offenders who were approved, state-approved foster parents. I've seen a report where a child she was returned to her parents, it said human trafficking, that she had been human trafficked. Well, she wasn't human trafficked in her own parents' home. This happened under state care. So the vast majority of older kids in the foster care system or adoption system have been abused but sexually molested. It is more common than not for an older child to have been molested in foster care. A child in foster care is at least 6 times more likely to be raped, abused, molested, or killed in foster care than if they were left in their own home. One of the things that I hear so much is that, well, why aren't I know these people who are truly abusive. They really are abusive, and Child Protective Services doesn't do anything about it. And here's what I've learned from whistleblowers, from social workers who have talked to us and told us what's really going on. Because of financial incentives from the federal government on the federal level, like the Adoption and Safe Families Act in 1997 and other federal streams of money, what they're looking for are children who are considered to be adoptable. Children who are truly abused and truly in need of intervention are considered by the system to be damaged goods who are unadoptable. That's the answer to why some of these kids are taken, or are not taken, that should be taken. Laws are broken left and right. There are plenty of laws that would protect these children from the injustices, but they're broken left and right. I would dare say that I would be able to count the number of stories on one hand or less, where there were no laws broken by people working for the state, for the government. So they're not being followed. There's not accountability. The federal incentives are creating an atmosphere where children can be taken from innocent families, just like you, just like me, without having done anything wrong. And they can be put into the hands of pedophiles, traffickers, or people who want to use them for medical drug research. and there's horror stories that we hear of, and we think they're anomalies. That's not the norm. Well, what I found out is that is the norm. It's more normal for this abuse to happen than it is for it not to be. But what happens is we get these reports and these federal reports and all these numbers that are sanitized. And yes, of course they have due process. Yes, of course they have an attorney. Yes, of course they have this, that, and the other thing that they're supposed to have. But that's not what's happening in reality. They're not really getting due process. They're getting attorneys that are court-appointed or even ones that they pay for that are not effective. They're not presenting exonerating evidence. There's this. It is really, really difficult all across the nation for any parent to find an attorney who is willing to truly fight for them and present the actual evidence. I cannot unsee the things that I've seen in the past 5 years. I've cried so many tears for families just like yours. I believe that if our Congress really knew what was happening, I believe that if President Trump really knew what was happening, he would do something about it to fix it. I see the side that you may not see. That side is the prevalent side. Listen to their voices, please.
Thank you. Dr. Carlos Romero.
Look, I'd like to thank Congressman Antonio Delgado and Junior Legislative Assistant Matthew S. Gerson for the privilege and opportunity to speak here today with you. My name is Dr. Carlos Rivera. I'm a pediatrician from Patchogue, New York, with over 18 years of clinical experience. Today I would like to speak to you regarding the deleterious effects of high conflict divorce on the emotional and psychological development of children. As a society, we have neglected to acknowledge the true suffering of children of divorce that they have endured. The age-old adage that children are resilient and bounce back from negative experiences couldn't be further from the truth. We now know that negative and traumatic experiences directly affect cognitive development and mapping. Brain structures are physically altered by alterations in the neurotransmitter and hormonal milieu. The development of a child's brain architecture provides the foundation for all future learning, behavior, and health. Just as a weak foundation compromises the quality and strength of a house, adverse experiences early in life can impair brain architecture with negative effects lasting into adulthood. Toxic stress weakens the architecture of the developing brain, in particular areas dedicated to higher order skills, which can lead to lifelong problems in learning, behavior, physical and mental health, and quality of life across their lifetime. In the late 1990s, researchers for the Centers of Disease Control in Kaiser Permanente were able to provide very compelling evidence that childhood trauma and instability impact health outcomes. The Adverse Childhood Experiences study uncovered a stunning link between childhood trauma and the chronic diseases people develop as adults, as well as social, emotional, and physical disorders. This includes heart disease, lung cancer, and many autoimmune diseases, as well as depression, violence, being the victim of violence, and suicide. There are 10 types of childhood trauma measured in the ACE study. 5 are personal: physical abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, physical neglect, and emotional neglect. 5 are related to other family members, such as a parent who is an alcoholic, a mother who is a victim of domestic violence, a family member in jail, a family member diagnosed with a mental illness, and the disappearance of a parent through divorce, death, or abandonment. Children exposed to multiple adverse childhood events were much more likely to experience health risks, including alcoholism, drug abuse, depression and suicide attempt, smoking, multiple sexual partners, and sexually transmitted diseases. Divorce or separation is the most common adverse childhood experience reported nationally. According to the CDC, the annual health care cost of adult patients who have a history of early trauma is $124 billion a year. Validating patients' past trauma isn't only beneficial for their well-being, it translates into fewer tests, procedures, and healthcare dollars spent. Sadly, with the current rate of divorce exceeding 50%, the prevalence of long-term health risks associated with these adverse events rises at an astonishing rate. This is further compounded by the current societal belief that divorces can only be dealt with in an adversarial manner. The current culture of divorce encourages acrimonious dissolution of marriages, resulting in irrevocable harm to our children. Even if divorcing couples seek an amicable situation, the modus operandi of our court system encourages conflict. When we're strive to shield our children from this harm and provide an environment free of avoidable conflict. Our courts must truly act in the best interest of children and discourage current practices aimed at harming one parent in the process of winning the divorce. Divorce is not a competition, it's a dissolution of the relationship. The preservation of the child's future must take precedent over the material and economic gain. But in current society, this notion is naive. There are currently too many weapons in the legal arsenal to facilitate battle during the divorce process. All too often, loving parents lose sight of the harm endured by children in the throes of legal battle. Hurt people, hurt people. Adults can be irrational in facing the economic and emotional strain of divorce. False accusations, interference with parenting time, parenting alienation are common. The latter being the most damaging to the developing child. Parental alienation is a process and the result of psychological manipulation of a child into showing unwarranted fear, disrespect, or hostility towards a parent, grandparent, or other family member or friend. It is a deliberate, sustained effort to damage and diminish or outright eliminate a child's loving feelings towards a parent. This is a severe form of child abuse. The majority of children are in contact with both parents on a regular basis, and the most common preference among children and amongst adults looking back on their parents' divorce is for parenting plans that nearly evenly balance the time between homes. Though theoretically possible, this is seldom the case. While many states purport to provide this arrangement, the statistical likelihood is that one parent will see their child or children one evening per week and every other weekend. In reality, tallying up to approximately only 5 days of parenting time during any given month. In cases of parental alienation, this potentially facilitates more opportunities to bond with a more aggressive parent. The alienation of children goes unnoticed by the courts many times because most of the judges and lawyers do not recognize the signs of it, nor provide the appropriate means to investigate it. Frankly put, most of these judges do not have the training or qualifications to identify the problem that exists in a lot of these situations. On average, when looking at the biographies and credentials available from many family law judges and attorneys, you find a lot of the same type of educational degrees, legal backgrounds, and accolades. While everything has exceptions, rarely do you see the evidence that these authorities have any specialized training and skill sets to deal with psychology, children, and parenting. This is alarming considering the courts claim to act and make decisions under the banner of a child's best interest. Many decisions often get made in favor of one parent over another based on motion filings, hearsay without any outside evaluations done by neutral third parties with real expertise and various claims to deal with psychological aspects of custody and divorce, thus best suited to assess parents and children and uncover signs of alienation. Combine this with the many unethical and manipulative tactics used by lawyers and players in custody and divorce reveals, and you have a recipe for disaster. We, the people, have entrusted individuals who, by their very nature and training, are prone to adversarial conflict in the form of litigation and courtroom displays to make decisions and steer outcomes regarding the child's well-being. It is in this way that children often become more like pawns on a chessboard as opposed to having their best interests genuinely prioritized and safeguarded. In the end, it is the children who suffer each and every time. Though this is clearly a form of child abuse, many witnesses to parental alienation do not intervene. There is a common belief that this is a private matter within the family and outsiders will be violating the privacy of that family. Witnesses thereby act as bystanders who do not act in the event of an endangered child. We need to change this trend and demand that witnesses speak up and rise to protect these children from irreversible emotional and physical harm. We must also be cognizant of the collateral harm suffered by estranged parents, families, and loved ones. Over the course of my career, I've repeatedly witnessed families emotionally torn by this process. I have listened to repeated testimonials of how, when compared to the most devastating personal loss or challenge, alienation from a loved child by far exceeds the trauma of any other life event or challenge. Military veterans who served in active combat state that they would rather face the risk of their own life in battle than be estranged, alienated, and kept from their child. Currently, there are multiple loopholes and opportunities to facilitate the actions and choices of parents who choose to alienate a targeted parent from their child. From parental alienation to custody issues, CPS intervention, child trafficking, and medical kidnapping, there are numerous critical issues to address. These are topics that will be addressed by my colleagues in attendance. The current safeguards in our courts fall short of the charge to protect the best interests of the children. There is a dire need for revision and reform to address the protection of children affected by the process of divorce. We are now fully aware of the adverse effects of divorce on children's health. We have a duty to act. I implore the distinguished individuals attending this conference to dedicate their efforts for effective revision and change. We have a responsibility for health and welfare of our children's future and must be steadfast in our resolve to prevent the preventable. I thank you for your time and look forward to the effective change you are empowered to provide. Thank you.
Chris Morris.
Hello. First off, I'd like to start off by thanking Anthony Delgado and Matthew Gerson for attending. I'm Christopher Marks of the Indiana people, indigenous to what is now in the state of Indiana. I'm here as a reminder of the history of this nation, a reminder of what the government has done to the American Indian people, a reminder of the American Indian Reservation Policy. The American Indian Reservation Policy was the U.S. federal government's policy on how to deal with the American Indian problem that we had within this nation. That policy was to intentionally keep the American Indian people poor, to limit their access to the access to the necessities that allowed Native Americans to survive. The Native American people of this nation have survived what was deemed to be the cultural genocidal practices that our own U.S. federal government committed against the American Indian people through the American Indian boarding school practices. That was the practice wherein the government would come in and remove the American Indian children, send them great distances separating those children from their parents. Those children were very often beaten, murdered, and buried in mass graves, molested. The same statistics, maybe even higher, that we now see the American people facing while they're in the family court system's child protective services. When they're placed with foster parents, those who are state authorized to act as the guardians of our children, who coincidentally can also be on a sexual predator's watch list, or a sex offender's watch list. We now have American families experiencing the exact same treatment by our federal government. And if you want to know what a future of the United States of America looks like while the American Indian Reservation Policy is being implemented against every American all across this nation, this isn't a stretch of imagination. All one has to do is go to a current American Indian reservation, wherein you find that the American Indian man is statistically the highest statistic for suicide. These are people that, while being the original peoples of this nation, exist in less than 1% of a population cap of the entirety of this nation. They are poor. They are neglected. They were kept that way, and this was the United States government's policy on how to deal with the American Indian problem. I think that the main question that the people here need to ask themselves is if this is the way our federal government created policies to deal with the American Indian problem, what does our federal government have a problem with every American in this country? Why would you send out a subdivision of the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Health and Human Services, our state branches' CPS practices, to lie about American children, commit felony perjury in our child and youth services cases? Why would we leave social workers underneath those CPS practices and allow them to, through that perjury, kidnap American people's children, place them in foster homes where they can be molested, beaten, murdered? My main question to the federal government is, when we make our Social Security contributions, it's my understanding that the Social Security system is a trust fund, that it is an individual trustor paid into that Social Security trust fund, that the United States federal government would manage that trust fund appropriately, would pay those monies out exclusively to the beneficiaries that were entitled to those benefits, our elderly, our disabled, our disenfranchised. The state governments that are being paid our Social Security monies through the Social Security Act of 1974 as amended to date, all the money that is being received by the states, that's federal mismanagement of our Social Security monies. That valuation annually exceeds over $50 billion a year, while the individual contributors that were paid into those Social Security funds receive less than $30 billion a year. Why are our elderly, disabled, and disenfranchised left picking between whether or not they're going to pay for the food, pay for the health care, pay for their shelter, and they only get to pick two of those three, while the state governments are sitting fat cat on federal grant monies that are being sent out of our Social Security funds? Last and most important, why is the federal government mismanaging our money to pay the state governments to commit crimes against us? I'm done with my time.
Okay, so again, I do want to thank Congressman Antonio Delgado, Matthew Pearson again, and also, forgive me, I did leave out Lynn Johnson, appointed by President Trump for the child trafficking, the head child trafficking chair, and we thank her. She's been receiving numerous affidavits from families all over the country, particularly outside of our country. And also, I'd like to thank, special thanks to Robert Slavin. If it wasn't for Robert Slavin, we would not be here today, and Joyce Catalano for putting together an amazing concert. It's the second annual For the Children concert here in Washington, D.C., and Robert for putting together this entire event for the children. And it's all about the children, but you know what? We're all God's children. Even though we're adults, little kids living inside of us, this event is something that has been happening for centuries. It's not just something that's been happening recently. Now that we are seeing all the child trafficking come to light, we know about Epstein, and we know about all the different things that are happening and that are coming to light. And when I first began speaking, I said, we're here today to talk about the child trafficking industry. And most people, when you hear child trafficking, when you think of a little girl or a little boy somewhere in some country on the dirt sand and being prostituted. But unfortunately, it's not that simple. It's not that obvious. So as advocates, and I'm a national advocate, we have learned that this child trafficking industry is a for-profit private business. The doorway is family court. Family court is the doorway. And a lot of people separate the different businesses. They'll say family court is one entity, CPS, Child Protective Services, is another, foster care is another, forced adoption is another, kidnapping is another. No, this is one evil system. And sadly, because I court watch all over the country, court system. Now, if your court system's not just, then that's not justice, and we don't actually have a court system. And when it's tied into child trafficking, and it's a systemic, very sophisticated system, that as soon as a family breaks up, which they're already going through hardship, okay, they're already going through something terrible, they're already going through something very traumatic. They say that actually the breakup of a relationship in many cases, and this is psychologically proven, is more devastating even than the death of a loved one, the breakup. So imagine being a little child and being ripped away from your mother and father and having to live with that trauma and having to go with, did I sound just? And having to go with a complete and utter stranger and not know what's happening, and then being that mother or father, or mother and father, because it happens to whole homes too, and not knowing why someone just came and took your child from you, and now we're going to ask questions later. We're going to see if you're guilty or not later. Now, Dr. Carlos talked about ACE research, adverse childhood experiences. The traumas associated with that are lifelong and actually take away years of your life. It can take up to 20 years, and even they're discovering now even more, so early death. And so imagine being that child and being that adult as well, because you're suffering too, parents are suffering too. God gave children to parents so that we can protect them, and raise them in a way that they should go. And we don't have that opportunity anymore in this country because the trauma alone, the actual trauma alone from that first second is so devastating that you're changed for life. Your brain is changed for life. Now imagine this happening long term for years. I have families who I've been advocating for years. I also became a victim of this system myself. And I have literally seen families, their children come back and they're starting a healing process. You're never 100%. But then I have families that have not seen their children, nor do they know where they are. They don't even know where they are. How do you live every day of your life not knowing where your children are? I know that my eyes never left my children. I remember looking in the rearview mirror at my son or my daughter and never wanting to take my eyes off of them. Imagine not knowing where they are. So I didn't want to give statistics today. I wanted to appeal to your human side. I wanted to appeal to what we're supposed to be built on here in this country. We are a country mostly of, well, we should be of family, correct? Today. We have all the science, we have all the research, we know what's happening. But we want to also tie it into the fact that children, adults, and the elderly should not be trafficked. And it's not always sexual trafficking. Trafficking is simply moving a child or an adult from one location to another without any kind of due process whatsoever. Completely reverse of what our laws are very clear, and what they're supposed to be are completely opposite of what they are. So we are here today not just to tell you what's happening, not just to shed light on what's happening. We're not here just to tell you this so that tomorrow you can go about your day and just keep this perpetrating this disgusting child trafficking industry through the family court and all the venues I just explained. But we're here today because we are demanding that this stops. We don't want to see the family court open tomorrow morning. We want to see Title 18, Sections 241 and 242. We want to see these judges arrested and jailed for their treasonous acts, because this is an absolute treasonous act against the American families on American soil. I'm going to ask everybody to do some research and look up something that most people think is true. Look up in our country if there's any state that's allowed to have a licensed attorney. Now, if you find one thing wrong with the system that's supposed to be the justice system, wouldn't that mean everything is wrong? And I'll just give you a little hint. There is no such thing as a licensed attorney. They are bar members, and that's a membership. This is such a fraud, and we can no longer, in this century, allow this fraud to continue. I am not here today to simply give you stats. I'm not here today. We're here to educate you and to shed light on this, but we want this system completely over, abolished, and then we comes into play, which talks about arresting, actually it says a little worse than that, it will be nice, arresting the treasonous so-called judges, which aren't actually judges. And I'm going to leave the rest of that to David Jose. He's going to finish this off with what they really love.
Hello, I want to thank you all for being here. I definitely want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to be able to speak with you and to explain some of the things that are going on. Matthew Gerson, I definitely want to thank you for coming and taking notes. I'm definitely appreciative of that, and I'm appreciative to Representative Delgado for opening up the doors for all of these things to happen. Francesca Amato just made a statement that seems to be very harsh. It seems that when you say something like a judge or an attorney could be working in a fraudulent manner, it would seem that that may not be true. Well, I come here today as one of we the people. If you look at every preamble to every constitution in every state, it's going to speak of we the people. Another thing we're going to find is that we the people hold all political power. Not some, not a little bit, not what we're given, but the actual bills of rights and declarations of rights say that the power is inherent in the people. And so in order for us to be able to write a constitution and to be able to create seats and offices for judges and executive branch members and legislative members to sit in order to do that, we must have first had the power to get it. And so when we deal with courts and judges and attorneys who laugh when you talk about the Constitution, something should click in your mind and let you know that this is wrong. Because if there is no such thing of a constitution, then there is no such thing of a government seat. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some words from our forefathers around the world so that we can, the nation, so that we can hear what it is that our forefathers left us when they created our states and our nation. And so we'll start off with Arizona Declaration of Rights, because that's where I'm from. Our forefathers left this in the Declaration of Rights. A frequent recurrence to fundamental principles is essential to the security of individual rights and the perpetuity of free government. It's not saying so that the government could be free. It's saying if you want to have individual rights and you want to be a free people, you must always go back to fundamental principles. And so that's what I want to do today. I want to look at some of the fundamental principles that our forefathers left so that we would not have the problem that we are having today. The second one is political power. Many times people will say, I'm asking the government to give us our rights back. I'm asking the government to help us. But in the Declaration of Rights of Arizona, we'll see where Section 2 says, all political power is inherent in the people, and governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, and are established to protect and maintain individual rights. So, the reason this is important is because everything that we have heard today is simply a situation where officials who we might call government are taking powers that we can't find anywhere in any constitution in the country. So if the people give the duties to the government to protect our rights, that means that it is a trust. The Constitution is simply a trust, indenture. And what we're doing is we're granting power into government officials to take care of our property and our rights, and that's it. So, if we grant power to a group or a body to make them trustees to protect our rights and property, can they again work in a case to take our property from us? Is a breach of trust. Now, some people might say, well, you're saying that this is a trust relationship. When we look at the Constitution, there's no way that can be true. They're government officials. They have power. You guys have power over the people. let's look at Georgia Constitution 1877 as ratified without subsequent amendments. And it's going to tell us something that may shock all of us. It says, all government of right originates with the people, is founded upon their will only. Government was not put here to impose a will over the people. It was created for the people's will only. Now, for some reason, there has been a lack of education in schools where this is taught. So many of us, even in this room, might not know that the Bills of Rights say that the power comes from the people and it's not the other way around. But what we must notice is this. It says it's founded upon their will only, meaning the people's wills only, and it's instituted solely, meaning only for the good of the whole. Public officers are the trustees. Public officers are the trustees and servants of the people. And at all times, not just in session, at all times amendable to them. So what that means is that the people can change the government whenever they want to, because the trust powers that you were granted as government officials came from the people. And there should never be a time in America where the people have to come beg for officials to give us the rights that we declared in the Bills of Rights and the Declaration of Rights. The Bills of Rights and the Declarations of Rights are simply the trust indenture which gives you power to do anything that you do. But if you take powers, it is no longer just powers, it is stolen powers, and you act in them private. Anything you do outside the trust indenture is private, and people who have been given power are responsible. So when Francesca says these judges are not government officials, these lawyers aren't government officials, nobody in any trust indenture anywhere in this nation gave anybody the power to take a child from anybody at any time, ever, arbitrarily. The states are allowed to accept kids into care. As for this law that we have discussed, CAPTA, the law that we discussed, and the Social Security Act, the public law that we discussed, never gave anyone authority to ever take a child from anybody at any given time against their will. And I'm going to read it to you so you can see it. This is where we know that something is wrong. Because if the average man or woman does something outside of trust, they can go to prison. But when someone who calls himself a judge or a legislative member writes statutes and codes and laws that go against the very Constitution and the people who gave the power, it is a breach of trust. And so what I want to do is read a couple of things to end this off, because for some reason we've been told that there is an ability for a social worker to take a kid, and it's in the law. We've been told that they have the ability to adopt out kids by force, and it's in the law. Well, what I want to say is that it is not in the law. And as a matter of fact, we have been tricked because Title 42 of the United States Code is not law. Title 42 of the United States Code has never been passed into Congress. It is a non-positive law. It is an editorial compilation of what is law called the public law. And I'm going to read from the 3 public laws so we can hear what jurisdiction our government officials have and what the real law is. And I'm going to read from Sandra Day O'Connor, the first female Supreme Court Justice in America. In the case Troxel versus Granville in 2000, I'm going to read from what one attorney showed. It says the U.S. Supreme Court ruled on the issue of grandparent visitation rights. Now, we're talking about grandparent visitation. We're not talking about a caseworker. We're not talking about a judge in the Superior Court. We're not talking about a representative of the state. We're talking about somebody who has blood familial relationship with a child. And this is what the Supreme Court said, and it is not shown in the public by attorneys. It says, which involved a dispute a Washington State mother and her ex-boyfriend, between Washington State mother and her ex-boyfriend's parents. When Brad Troxel, the children's father, died in 1993, his parents informed the mother, Tommy Granville, that they wanted to maintain a relationship with the couple's 2 daughters. Washington law, now pay attention that this says Washington law, but the court is going to correct that language. The court is not going to just say that it's a law. The court is going to explain exactly what it is and what it has to stand under. So it says that the court, the Washington law at the time, allowed any person to petition for visitation at any time, and gave state court discretion to grant that visitation when it was in the child's best interest. Number one, you will never find best interest of a child in any law anywhere in the world. It does not exist. It's not a standard. It is not, law is specific. There is no such thing of a best interest of the child. It is arbitrary. It is something that is made up to make a determination that you can't make because you're not a psychologist or a social worker, right? But this is what the court found. It said, but the majority of the Troxel court struck down the state statute as unconstitutional. Not every statute that is made is constitutional, but if nobody challenges it, it stands. So we have courts that know that it was unconstitutional. Judges that know that it was unconstitutional, but they took jurisdiction anyway when they didn't have it, just to be able to make money off of these cases because they make money off the actual case. This is not about them being paid by taxes as government workers. They get paid by government taxes at one time, and then at another time they're getting paid money in special cases that are not really Article 3 courts. These are private entities that can be closed at times, with which every Declaration of Rights and Bill of Rights in the country say you cannot do. But to continue, finding it interfered with the parents' rights to raise the children as they please. So the Supreme Court already came out and told that the people have a right to raise their children as they please, and nobody can make a statute, no legislature can make a statute that says that somebody can come in arbitrarily and take your children from you. But this is what's happening. So we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of parents in America crying, broken, many committing suicide, because they believe that somebody had the power to take their kids, and they did not know that their own Bill of Rights and Declaration of Rights says that children are a liberty interest and you cannot take them without due process of law. That means a jury of your peers. So we have a system that is not constitutional, that the Supreme Court has already said is not constitutional, and bar members are not coming out and telling the people and giving full disclosure that they are running a private court. And so we're facing a situation where we are in dire straits, and we have people asking for permission to have their children when children are liberty interests and nobody can take them. It is unconstitutional. Now, to continue, writing for the majority, Justice Sandra Day O'Connor said, the liberty interest at issue in this case, the interest of parents in the care, custody, and control of their children, is perhaps the oldest of the fundamental liberty interests recognized by this court. The Supreme Court realizes the familial relationship between a mother and father and their child as the oldest liberty interest recognized by the entire Supreme Court. But we have people taking our children. Now, to end, what I want to do is look at the 3 laws that are so-called used to give these people power to take children. And this is what they're using. Because the people in America today believe that this organization has the right and the duty to take your kids from you if they have some concern. So they are using Title 42 to say we have the right to give your kids services. Title 42 has never been passed in positive law. So they're not giving you the public law, which is the real law. They're giving you an editorial compilation that's giving them the ability to hold cases that they do not have the right or the authority from the people to hold. And here's the laws. ASPA, one of the worst, 1997, worked on by Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. Parents around the country are quoting the Title 42 and saying that ASPA is the worst thing in the world because it gave mothers and fathers, social workers, the ability to steal kids from parents. This is what they honestly believe. Let's look at what the truth says, the actual law. ASPA Section 401, Preservation of Reasonable Parenting. Nothing in this act is intended to disrupt the family unnecessarily or to intrude inappropriately into family life. Why is it inappropriate to intrude into family life? Because it's a liberty interest that the people have that they never gave anybody the power to disrupt. To prohibit the use of reasonable methods of parental discipline, we have people who say if you use spanking as a discipline, if you correct your children, if you go to church too much, that you shouldn't have your child. If you got 4 dishes in the sink, you shouldn't have your child. To prohibit the use of reasonable methods of parental discipline or to prescribe a particular method of parenting. One social worker can't come and tell you that you can't have your kids because you go to church too much, because you make them work out and you don't let them just sit and play video games. You cannot do that. That power was not given. And it is in the very law that they say they're using to take the kids that gives them authority. It says you can't. Here's another. Social Security Act, 1935. We're going to look at the original legislative intent. Title 11, definition section 1101, 6D. Nothing in this act. See, in the original, it was always told that nothing in these acts gave anybody the power to take people's kids. Why is this one hidden and Title 42 always shown? Why is 45 CFR always shown? Why not show what the Congress really gave? Congress gave out a law and told people don't run over parents' rights. Now, attorneys who are working with these entities that are private and making money off of all these cases and hiring judges who become private to make money off of all these cases are hiding the law that you all made, hiding the law that actually tells that you can't take children from people, and using something else to take people's kids, which is kidnapping. It says nothing in this act shall be construed as authorizing any federal official, and I want us to know that CPS is an agent of the federal, because they're contracting with HHS, which is federal, in order to get the money. It says any federal official, agent, or representative in carrying out any of the provisions of this act to take charge of any child over the objection of either of the parents of such child or the person standing in local parentage to such child. This means that you cannot take a kid from anybody who doesn't want you to. Now, they've been bringing guns, they've been bringing untrained police to come with them to take kids when the law says you cannot take kids. So we're putting everybody on notice. We're going to send out affidavits to every congressional member to let them know what is happening. We are going to send out affidavits to William Barr. We're going to send out affidavits to Donald Trump. We're going to send out affidavits to everyone and let them know what the real law says and let them know that the people in the states aren't following. And then for the people in the states and the so-called judges who are working in private attorneys, we're going to write affidavits of treason to let them know that the real law said you can't take kids. You are now on notice that you can't take kids. And if you want to continue to take kids, we will happily give you affidavits of treason to let it be known that you are breaking the law. We come humbly in the name of Christ, letting you know what the truth is, and we are asking for something to be changed and for people to stop. We're not asking it to be fixed, just stop. Because you're hurting too many families and people are committing suicide. The one last law, called CAPTA, which everybody has been scared of since 1974. Public Law 86-724, it was in 74 Stat 849. It starts off in Section 2A by saying, notwithstanding any other provision of law. That means if any other part of the law says that you can't do it, nothing in here has standing. So before we start reading these laws, we need to make sure we realize if it has standing when there's another law beforehand that says that you can't do what you're doing. But in this law, it says, an annuitant, as defined under Section 8901(3) of Title V, United States Code, who is participating or who is eligible to participate in the health benefits program, not law, program, under Retired Federal Employees Health Benefits Act. So the limitations of this CAPTA was to be for federal employees. I have a hard time understanding why attorneys read the law every day and they don't tell anybody that this program was for retired federal employees and their children to have benefits. It's an insurance program. So why are you taking kids from people who are not inside of your insurance program, who are not federal employees? Surely not because they have a federal ID number called a Social Security number. If you're not working and getting paid a check by the federal government, why aren't they using authority over you? So, as I end, I want to read from Declaration of Rights, Due Process of Law in Section 4 Section 4 of due process of law, which is due process of law in Arizona, it says, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Lord Cope would have told you that due process of law is what's called a jury of your peers, and it's by the common law. You look at Article 7 of the Bill of Rights and some of these statutes out here, it will mention common law twice. Common law is the law of the land. Any private law or any contracts that's being exerted on the people or being forced on the people is not allowed in the common law. So if you want to take the life of a man or a woman, you want to take their kid, which is a liberty interest, you want to take their property, which has happened all too much. If you want to take any of that, you have to have a jury of your peers. The people didn't give the government the right to take take people, take their money, take their property, because that would be a conflict of interest. You can't be someone who's a trustee for me and have the duty to take care of my property and my rights, and then fight against my property and my rights and take. And so I want to thank you all for listening to us. We will have affidavits going out to every single representative. Let it be known what is happening. We actually have thousands of people who are in the states who will write affidavits as well. Let it be known what is happening. We know that it is not the fault of Congress, because you guys actually wrote real laws that protected us and said do not take children against their parents' wishes. But for some reason, somebody has not passed the memo to the police officers and to the states who are taking kids for money now. So I thank you guys for having us. I thank you for coming and taking notes. I thank you guys for listening intently. And I thank you for being here for the people. I pray that we can work together to make resolutions by stopping those things that are wrong and not trying to change those things or saying that it costs too much money. Surely, the children of America don't cost, there's no price that can be put on their head in cost to stop the stealing and the kidnapping of children. And if we might ever think that this is not happening, we can just look at Italy. Recently has come out and arrested judges, attorneys, guardian ad litems for a scheme to take children from parents and to lie as if they were abused. We can also look at California just recently. Judges and attorneys and guardian ad litems are being watched by the FBI right now for a scheme that they're taking children. If we look at ex-CIA, Robert David Steele, he came out and said that there is a scheme going against elderly and children where they are taking kids without due process and by fraud. And they said that the players are going to be arrested. We're seeing a lot of arrests now. And one thing that I want to remind all government officials and the people of is that anytime you hear felons and you don't do something about the felony, the law says you're a part of the felony. So the people are aware of what's happening around the country. Hundreds of thousands of parents have come out to all of us and told us the different things that are happening. They're writing affidavits. They sent affidavits to Trump's trafficking council head chair. So the truth is out there, and the people are standing up, and we're asking those people who are righteous in their positions to do the right thing and to bring punishment to those who are doing wrong and return the children. Thank you.